Hey there, welcome back to our tutorial series on YouTube brought to you by O3 Schools JAMB app. I hope by now we've all downloaded our apps, and if you haven't, waste no more time. Hurry now to Play Store and download your O3 Schools JAMB app. I promise you this app will help you with your preparations for any examinations that you have coming up. So today our topic is leadership qualities. Leadership qualities. So first off, we start by defining who a leader is. Like, who is a leader? A leader is a person saddled with the responsibility of directing let's just say a group, might not be people. Let's put it that way. A leader is a person saddled with the responsibility of directing a group. This is like a general definition. Anybody that has the responsibility of directing, guiding, instructing the group on the way forward. We refer to such people as leaders, and the act of doing this is referred to as leadership. Now, a more related discussion, because we are looking at leadership qualities in Christian religious studies. So a more related definition to this class would be a leader is anyone that led the children of Israel. Especially during their journeys, the children of Israel moved around a lot. What I mean is that in this class, we are solely going to focus on the people God used to lead the children of Israel, the people God used to direct them. So we're talking of Joseph, Moses first, Joshua, and the judges. Generally, a leader is a person saddled with the responsibility of directing a group. But for the purpose of this class, we are dealing with, the people God used to lead the children of Israel. So we'll be starting with Joseph, then we'll look at Moses, Joshua, and the judges. We'll be examining the circumstances that led to their leadership, their work with God, their leadership qualities, which is the major topic. These ones are just subtopic. So without wasting much time, we'll start with Joseph as a leader. Joseph's story is documented in the Bible in Genesis chapter 37 and then chapter 39 to 45. First up, we look at his background. So Joseph was the son of Jacob and Rachel. Joseph was Jacob's son. Rachel gave birth to Joseph for Jacob. So at the age of 17 years, Joseph was already feeding the flock with his brothers in the field. But Joseph was the favorite of Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons, if you remember. 12 sons of Jacob. And Joseph was his favorite. He even made a robe of many colors for him. Naturally, this made Joseph's brothers dislike him. We look at Joseph in Egypt. How did Joseph get to Egypt? So we've already established that Joseph was the favorite of Jacob, and this made his brothers dislike him. And then Joseph had a dream. He dreamt that he was, on the field with his brothers, and they were binding sheaves. They were binding sheaves in the field, and all of a sudden, Joseph said his own sheaf stood erect while the brothers' own bowed to him, to his own. So this made them angrier. First, we don't like you because, you are the favorite and you're treated nicely in a kind of way that the others are not treated. And then you come and say, we will bow down before you. So this increased his brother's hatred for him. And then he had another dream. This time he dreamt that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed before him, which is almost similar to the dream he had before. And his father even rebuked him too. Are you saying your father, your mother, and like your brothers will all bow down before you? So while the father rebuked him, this only increased and fueled the brothers' hatred for him. One day, Jacob asked Joseph to check on his brothers. They went to tend the flock in Shechem. But by the time Joseph arrived in Shechem, his brothers weren't there. And someone told him that they had gone down to Dothan. So Joseph went all the way to Dothan to look for his brothers. And by the time they saw him afar off, they conspired to kill him. But thanks to Reuben, that's the first son of Jacob, Reuben discouraged the idea. They shouldn't kill him. So instead, they sold him to Ishmaelite traders on their way to Egypt for 20 shekels of silver. That's how Joseph found himself in Egypt. And in Egypt, the Ishmaelite soldiers sold him to an officer of Pharaoh named Potiphar. We now look at Joseph in prison. Now, while Joseph was in Potiphar's house, God blessed him. God was with him. So things were prospering. And Potiphar noticed it. So he made Joseph head of his household. Now, Potiphar's wife wanted to lay with Joseph, but Joseph feared God. And he knew that that was a sin against God. He was not ready to sin against God. So she lied against him. And that was how Joseph got thrown in prison by Potiphar. She lied to her husband that Joseph tried to rape her, and out of anger, Potiphar threw Joseph in prison. Once again in prison, the guard in charge noticed that Joseph was capable. God was with him, and he was able to find favor in the guard's eye. The guard made Joseph in charge of other prisoners. Then Pharaoh's butler and baker, that's Pharaoh was the king of Egypt as at that time. Pharaoh's butler and baker offended Pharaoh, and Pharaoh threw them in prison. One day, Joseph saw them looking, dull, and he asked, what is the problem? So they explained to him that they had a dream. Now, Joseph was like, God interprets dream. So you tell it to me, see if there's anything I can do about it, which is how the butler told Joseph of his dream, and Joseph interpreted it, saying what this means is simply that in 3 days' time, you'll be reinstated back to your position. Joseph even begged him, please remember me. I didn't do anything. Joseph was innocent, but still he was in prison, and he was hoping that at least now that he had helped the butler would repay, and help him get out of prison since he was there innocently. And the butler agreed, while the baker's dream was that he would be hanged. Exactly 3 days' time, just as Joseph had interpreted, that was what happened. But the butler did not remember Joseph. We now look at Joseph and Pharaoh. So Joseph and Pharaoh. Exactly 2 years after Joseph had interpreted the butler's dream and he was reinstated, Pharaoh had dreams of his own, similar dreams though, 2 dreams, but they were similar. In the first dream, 7 thin cows ate up 7 fat cows, and in the second dream, same thing, 7 thin ears of grains ate up 7 plump ones. So and he woke up disoriented. He didn't really understand. And gathering all his wise men and advisors, no one could interpret the dream. It was then the butler remembered that while he was in prison with the baker, someone interpreted their dreams, and it came to pass exactly as he had interpreted. So he told Pharaoh of Joseph, and Pharaoh sent for Joseph. Joseph was brought out of prison and presented to Pharaoh, who now explained the dreams again, and Joseph told him that God was trying to show him what will happen. And since there were two dreams which were similar, it means it will definitely happen. And what that simply means is that there will be 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. Joseph did not only interpret the dreams, he also went ahead to give an advice. Okay, this is how we can handle the famine coming. All we need to do is to gather from the plenty and preserve, because the years of famine will be plenty and it will be strong. 7 years. So he asked that someone should be put in charge. And Pharaoh told him that there is nobody wiser than Joseph. Joseph as a leader now. So Pharaoh told Joseph that there was no one wiser than him in the land, and he made him his second in command, next to me. He will be in charge of every other person in Egypt because of, his wisdom. The Spirit of God was in Joseph that was leading him. So Pharaoh made Joseph his second in command, told him that, gave him a wife, changed his robe and gave him his signet ring, put him in charge of gathering the grains for the famine. And then when the famine actually came, it spread even beyond Egypt, and it got to the house of Jacob. So they had to come to Egypt when they heard there was food in Egypt. And that's how Joseph met his brothers again, and he revealed himself to them and brought them back to Egypt. That's how the children of Israel came to live in Egypt. That is Joseph's story as a leader. First off, he was sold into slavery, and then he was put in prison. And through it all, Joseph did not relent. And he finally made it as a leader in Egypt, the second in command, and he was able to bring the children of Israel. And when he even brought them, Pharaoh asked that they be put in the best part of the land. So Joseph brought the children of Israel to Egypt. Now I want to examine his leadership qualities. First off, we have the fear of God. Joseph had the fear of God in him. Through his story, you see he feared God and he obeyed. He was sold into slavery. Even when he was sold to Potiphar, in Potiphar's house, he was still, diligent and obedient. Even when he was put in charge of Potiphar's household, he still continued serving Potiphar well. And when his wife tried to, seduce and lay with him, Joseph knew that that was adultery and it was against the rules that God had given to them. Thou shalt not commit adultery is part of the 10 commandments. So Joseph feared God. Then he also had the Spirit of God. It was the Spirit of God in Joseph that made him able to interpret dreams. So that was how he was able to interpret dreams and interpreted Pharaoh's dream and became a leader in Egypt. We also have faithfulness. Joseph has always been faithful in little. Even when he was tending sheep with his brothers, he brought, reports to his dad. He brought report to his dad. When he was serving under Potiphar, serving in prison, he was faithful. For him to be able to rise to those positions, Joseph was a faithful person, faithful in little, which is why God elevated him to the position of a leader in all of Egypt. Then lastly, there's also forgiveness. Joseph interpreted the dream of the butler and begged him to please remember, but the butler did not remember Joseph. Also, his brothers, Joseph's brothers sold him to slavery. And while he was in slavery, he was even thrown in prison. He suffered a lot. But at the end, when he still saw his brothers, he was what? He was welcoming. He was able to forgive them and live together in peace with them. So these are some of the leadership qualities that Joseph had. These are qualities of leaders. As leaders or aspiring leaders, we should have these qualities. We can emulate Joseph and have the fear of God, the Spirit of God, faithfulness, and forgiveness. So that's the story of Joseph as a leader. Topic is leadership qualities. We gave a general definition of who a leader is: someone that is saddled with the responsibility of directing, a group of people. And we said for this class, we'll be examining the leaders God used to lead the children of Israel, starting with Joseph, then Moses, Joshua, and the judges. So for this class, we've treated Joseph as a leader, from his background to how he got to Egypt, how he found himself in prison, and then how Pharaoh elevated him to the position of his second in command. Also, some leadership qualities that Joseph possessed: the fear of God, the Spirit of God, faithfulness, and forgiveness. So now let's head on to the O3 Schools JAMB app and search for questions on leadership qualities. If you have downloaded the O3 Schools JAMB app, all you have to do is open the app, head to question search, type the subject, and type the topic. Then you click on search. It will come up with questions under that topic. So now I just typed in Joseph as a leader, and you see it, leadership qualities, Joseph. You see questions under. Here's the first one, a 1992 question, number 35 rather, question 35 in year 1992. Joseph's dream about his future leadership of his brothers was fulfilled when he became A, an overseer of Potiphar's house, B, an interpreter of dreams, C, an influential prisoner, D, the second in command to Pharaoh. The right answer would be D, the second in command to Pharaoh. By the time he became second in command, he was in charge of the grains. And so when his brothers came all the way to buy grains from Egypt, they had to what? They had to meet him first, and they bowed. Another question is question 5 in 1993. Why did Judah advise his brothers against shedding the blood of Joseph? A, he was afraid of blood. B, Joseph was their brother. C, blood is life. D, he wanted to raise some money by selling Joseph. The answer is B, Joseph was their brother. He said, what profit would it be to them if they kill him? For he was their brother and their flesh. So it was because Joseph was their brother. That was why Judah advised against shedding his blood. Question 4 in 1995. Joseph was hated the more by his brothers because A, he was his father's favorite. B, he was the first son of Rebekah. C, of his dreams. D, his father bought him a coat of many colors. The answer is C, of his dreams. So they were mildly annoyed by the fact that he was the father's favorite, and then the father was treating him, differently, getting him a coat of many colors and all of that. But by the time he now talked of his dreams, where he now said they will bow down to him, all their anger increased, their hatred, for him increased because of his dreams. So our answer is C, of his dreams. Then here's question 5 in 1995. Pharaoh set Joseph over the land of Egypt because he was A, a man of vision, B, compassionate and honest, C, discreet and wise, D, of a high moral standard. The answer is C, discreet and wise. Pharaoh called all his advisors, all his wise men, and none could give an interpretation of the dream, only Joseph. So because of his wisdom, Pharaoh set him over the land of Egypt. And 2022, question 5. Where did Joseph's brothers conspire to kill him? A, Dothan, B, Bethel, C, Gilead, D, Shechem. Yes, as stated in the Bible, Jacob actually sent Joseph to Shechem. But by the time Joseph got to Shechem, his brothers were not there. Someone told him that they had gone to Dothan, and Joseph went to meet them in Dothan. It was in Dothan that Joseph's brothers conspired to kill him. So our answer here is A, Dothan. So these are some questions that I just pulled out from my O3 Schools JAMB app. There are many more questions in the app that you too can have access to. Just go to Play Store, download the O3 Schools JAMB app and start practicing after you've activated. Thank you.